for your spouse. It eliminates communication as well between you and your spouse, because it becomes your comfort food. It becomes your go-to thing to escape, if you will.
Lisha Porter, hey, how are you?
Hey, baby girl. It eliminates that communication, and also this addiction could eventually lead to physical infidelity in the marriage. Because if you're looking on a man or a woman to have sex with them or to desire them in a sexual way, Matthew 5:27 and 28 says you've already committed the sin.
That's right. Hey, Kenneth and Jessica, what's up? I'm glad y'all joined us tonight.
Hey, thanks you guys for joining us. Another couple, the marriage mechanics. We did their counseling and married them, and they are super happy. We're so proud of you guys. Thanks for joining us. Also, these addictions, and I keep referring to it as an addiction, because most women, when their husbands are watching pornographic images or going to strip clubs or masturbating or doing those things, most women don't really understand if they've not been touched with those infirmities.
Right.
So I'm taking a few moments to just do a little bit of education. Also, another pitfall is you could potentially expose your children to it. And even if they don't stumble upon the actual porn itself, the manifestation of the spirit through your behavior could also connect with them. And you just don't want to welcome it or invite it into your house. It could ruin your concentration at work or other arenas that are vital for the livelihood of your family.
That's because that image is running rampant in your mind. You can't focus. You can't concentrate, because you 1 minute you sitting there, you're talking to a customer on the phone, and the next thing there's
a flash. And so also we covered that
it increases erratic and compulsive behaviors in the user or the addict, where they start behaving differently. They're easily aggravated and agitated and things of that nature, when before they was cool, calm, and collected.
Right.
Another thing we discussed, it could have a negative financial impact on the marriage, because again, to feed the addiction, in most cases, you are going to eventually have to spend money.
Absolutely. Even if you start out watching porn online and you're not able to get it at your house, then you have to go to the strip club, and you have to have bottle service to sit in certain arenas. And again, ladies, remember I told you the guys go to the strip club because they are the man at the strip club. They don't get respected in place else. They get it at the strip club. So that's why you see them making it rain, because they like praise. I want to make sure you know this. God created man in his likeness and his image, and he inhabits. He lives inside the praise. And so those girls at the strip club, they've learned how to praise the men who make it rain on them. And so you've got to get some of this into your spirit, not the sinful components of it, but the biblical principles, and begin to apply them.
Another thing that my wife probably thought about but probably forgot to mention is sometimes those men go to those strip clubs because he can get something from there sexually that he can't get at home.
Oh, absolutely, because all they do is just name your price. And that's probably, these wives that we've been counseling recently who, your husband is bound by that and you're frustrated. You've got to ask yourself, because not all of it is him. No. Is there something that he asked you to do sexually that you would not do? And so whether you view it as sin or not, I told my husband when we got married, I said, look, because he said, what do you like? What is it that you don't like? I said, it's irrelevant. I said, whatever it is that you want, whatever you like, whatever you desire, if it's not going to put me outside of the will of God, I am going to do it, and I'm going to learn how to be very good at it. I wanted to make sure that wouldn't be his issue. And so not all women, I'm so frustrated by some of these women that we've been counseling, because not all Christian women are like that. What do you mean you're not going to let me suck your toes, but you're going to get mad because I'm having sex dreams about sucking another woman's toes? And I've told you before I married you that sucking toes is a fetish I had. Just because you won't do it, that doesn't mean he loses his desire for it.
But it's like what we said in the last show. Sometimes, most of the time, you people don't even discuss that.
You people?
Married people, people aspiring to be married, y'all don't discuss those things before you get married.
No.
And so, or even during the marriage. These are things you don't even talk about.
Right.
And as a result of that, what ends up happening is this man or that woman, because women do the same thing too, they'll go on and feed these fetishes, and they feed these things, these addictions and these needs that are in their flesh in secret. And that's where the real damage comes in, when it's done in secret.
Well, see, a lot of times the Christian women, they are so rigid because, again, we talk rigid. Frigid and rigid. We talked about this on our last episode. If you haven't seen it, I want you to go back and see it. Help I think I'm losing my spouse. He's changing or she's changing and I'm scared. You need to watch that because a lot of times we have unresolved issues, deep-rooted issues that we never got to the bottom of. And so we bring those things into the marriage and our spouses end up suffering. And they think that they can handle it coming in. But over time, it becomes more and more apparent that the thing that they desire, that they need, that's not being met, is not something that they are able to live without.
Hey, and so they Deborah Sims.
Hey, Deborah Sims, Minister Sims, God bless you.
Minister Devon Williams.
Big Mama Do-Right, Quattrell Gray. Hey,
congratulations, by the way.
Congratulations on your engagement. Shout out. I know that we're going to be doing marriage counseling for this one, and you're going to listen this time. Hallelujah. But that was a little shade, but you know why. I love you, girl.
But listen, as my wife was saying, look, these are real things. These are real scenarios. And a lot of times, I remember we were having an issue where I didn't want to do something. Sexually. And my wife and I, we went and talked to our spiritual leader at the time. And he was like, well, no, it was unusual. Her request was an unusual request. He
told us to make a list, though.
Right.
He was open. He didn't shoot me down.
He didn't shoot her down.
He said, make a list of these things that you can't live without, if you feel you can't live without in the marriage. Sexually.
Right.
And he told him to do the same thing. He had 3 things on his list. I was like, what?
And so when she did her list, and one of the things which we had already had a discussion about, she was like, I want that. And it was a weird discussion. It was a weird request.
It's not weird. It's just something you had not had experience with.
Okay, it's something I had not had
My
experience.
sexual preferences are not weird. You were just extremely limited.
I'll take
that. The only hold on. Let me just say this. I want to make sure you see how I reworded that, ladies. You can't say things to make your husband feel like he's weird or he's a pervert or he's nasty because he prefers something that you're not into.
Right. But it was something that I was not privy to at the time.
Or comfortable with.
And our spiritual leader was like the same way. What's this all about? and so as she explained and went through the process of explaining and he realized this was something that was a serious need, he looked at me and said, now look, you got 1 or 2 choices. He said, for the sake of your marriage, if you want to preserve and keep that marriage, you may have to make some adjustments. Because once you get married, you no longer your own. Your body belongs to her and vice versa. And so it's one of those things, and I made the decision on that day that I was going to do my level best.
And I loved it. And it's not even something I do anymore now.
No, but and that's the crazy thing. We tried it.
It was great.
It was great for her.
For me. But it wasn't great for him.
It wasn't great for her. And what happened was, she didn't even ask for it no more.
No, because I never told him this, but because he was uncomfortable with it, I said, Lord, I don't want to desire something sexually that my husband doesn't enjoy. And so kill this thing on the inside of me. Right. Take away the taste, the desire, the craving for it. Because I want our lovemaking to be explosive and dynamic for both of us every time we come together in that way. And I realize a lot of women don't pray that prayer. When you become selfish in it, especially if a man is really good, my husband is really, really, really good in a lot of things. Oh my God. And so it's easy. It would have been easy for me to get caught up in just being served and pleased by him. But when you view marriage as ministry, you understand that it's an opportunity for you to meet a deep need in him as well. You ask God to make your body an instrument, and you come out of flesh and you come out of self. You come out of your emotions. That's why I tell you those past hurts, those pains, those insecurities, all those things have to be dealt with up front for you to be totally liberal and free in your sexuality, because otherwise it's going to wreck your marriage.
That's right.
If he had not not given me that, I probably would have cheated on him. Yes, I said it. Not because I planned to, but it doesn't matter who you are. Out of hunger and starvation. And it's simple. I use the analogy all the time. You ever been hungry coming home from work or coming home from someplace and you didn't have enough money to buy what you needed on you, but you had enough to get a McDonald's burger or a little dollar fry or something to hold you over? You end up eating at the drive-thru, something you never really craved or desired, but just to satisfy that hunger because you got a headache, your stomach's hurting, you're distracted, you can't focus. And so you never want to put your spouse in that position if you can avoid it.
And so what happens is a lot of times when you don't meet that need in your spouse, or if the spouse believes some way, either through conversation or through your behavior, that this is something that they won't be able to get from you, whether you're male or female, but they tend to look at other outlets. And pornography
is one of them.
That main outlet.
Because it's the lesser of the two evils. That's the step before actually cheating. And it's sad and it's unfortunate because some men come into the marriage with porn addictions. And like I said, silly rabbits, tricks are for kids. They go get marriage counseling with other people. And those people don't address. We deal with sex and marriage counseling. We deal with addictions. We deal with fetishes. We deal with preferences. We deal with all that stuff. You don't have to share it with us, but you do have to share it with each other. No, I'm not going to find out later that you got a fetish for midget girls and I'm not a midget. No. You know what I mean? No, let's just keep it moving. Let me stay focused.
Listen, it's the reason why we're telling you this is because, again, we said in the last episode, in part 1 of this episode, your sexual appetite was already, in most instances, developed before you got in your relationship. So it's important that you have that discussion. Now, my wife in the last
I was sharing some tips with okay.
My wife in the part 1 shared some very important statistics about pornography. Like, for example, the average age of exposure to online pornography is 11 years old. For masturbation, it's even younger than that. Also, 9 out of 10 youth between the ages of 8 and 16 has seen some form of pornography.
You need to know that.
I can remember when I was a kid, I used to sneak to watch HBO and Skinemax.
I had to be like 5 or 6 years old when I first saw porn.
Yeah.
And then I had to be like 8 years old when I first got fondled by this grown man because my mom had a gambling, her house was a gambling shack. And so, they'd be drunk and horny and whatever. And so you don't know what he or she has been exposed to before. And that's why it's impaired. That's why we absolutely address it. Another thing I shared was that every second, over 30,000 people are viewing pornography online. Every second.
Every second.
The largest online porn users are ages 12 to 17. And I did not know that before I started researching this. Ages 12 to 17. And so it all goes back to what we were exposed to as children.
Right.
Your husband or your wife is probably out there doing that because it's been embedded in them. It's never been identified or dealt with. And so they need to go through deliverance, but it's not going to come through ostracization. Let me stop trying to use big words.
30% of addicts are women. And from what we understand, that is rising day by day.
Yes.
So more and more women are starting to become addicted to porn. And also pornography is a weapon of mass destruction in marriages. And then my wife began to explain the science behind of how porn affects you mentally. First, it goes in through the eyes into the iris and triggers the release of chemicals in your brain. Chemicals like dopamine, serotonin, epinephrine, thank you, and oxytocin. Oxytocin. All of these are generally pain relievers. Okay?
They're natural chemicals that your body releases. It was designed to relax you basically after sex, so that you could focus. But what happens is when they go to strip clubs or they watch the porn, then your brain begins to release and your body releases more of these chemicals in large amounts. And to make a long story short, it overloads. And so instead of it giving you that hit or that high or that quick stimulation that you would get as far as an erection goes, prior to having sex with your spouse, you lose that sensitivity.
It's kind of like crack or any other drug. The more you use it, the less sensitive you are to it, so the more it's going to require for you to get that same high.
I need you to understand something, ladies. When men are going through this, a lot of times they've not done the research, so they don't understand the process themselves. I'm arming you with the tools you need so you know how to strategically pray, so that you know how to speak faith and deliverance in his ear and comfort him. When my husband was going through his thing with porn, us getting a divorce was not an option. I never mentioned anything of the sort. I began to pray and declare over him who God said he was, and he's doing exactly what I knew he would be doing. It wasn't long. It didn't take him a long time to get delivered because I did not receive the enemy's report. I didn't get insecure and go through a whole lot of, well, what is it that you like about? No, ma'am, I went to war. No, you cannot have my husband enemy. Right. He will not. He will not.
Now, once you become addicted to porn, because it's usually the only way for you to get aroused sexually. So most of those individuals who have been dealing with porn for an extended amount of time, the wife or the spouse no longer stimulates them sexually.
They have to go to the strip club or watch the porno.
Okay. And so what happens is, in order for the wife or the spouse to be able to stimulate them, they have to be the fantasy.
And see, a lot of times, women, especially these women who marry men that are fresh out of prison, that have had same-sex relations with men in prison and gotten accustomed to that. They've done long sentences, and they don't want to be homosexual. They don't want to live their lives with a man. They did that because they had sexual urges that they didn't know how to control or manage. When they come out, they want to have sex with you because lots of married couples have anal sex, and the wife and the husband both enjoy it. But if that's what he's preferring and that's not what you're into, not only do you pray, but you have these open discussions. And I'm going to let you know right now, 9 times out of 10, he's going to deny it. He's going to say, no, I never did this, I never did that. Well, you were not a booty chaser before you went to prison. Do you know what I mean? and don't ostracize him, and don't say that. Don't say that. But say to him, listen, I'm not going to hold that against you. We're going to get through this. But what I need to know is exactly what I'm working with.
Right.
I am here for you. I'm team you. We're going to win regardless of what it's going to take out of me. We're going to win. We're going to win. And so, but you got to draw him to a place of transparency. Right. I mentioned that for that purpose. I won't spend a lot of time on that. Over time, the body and the brain begin to demand more intense, extreme, hardcore versions of the porn or the strip club.
It's like what I said about crack. It's like what I said about any other drug, alcohol. The more you do it, the more it's going to take for you to feed the need.
Right.
At this point, your body begins to shut down completely. It cannot function sexually without porn. This is the lowest place you can find yourself in with this addiction. See, listen, a lot of time, this is where we said in the last
episode,
first part of this episode, this is where erectile dysfunctions can come in. This is where women who are what we call non-arousal low libido women may fall and find themselves in, because they probably looked at porno for so long, so much.
Or they have same-sex attractions that they've not discussed. And so a lot of times when you find women who are addicted to porn, it's because they have same-sex attraction. And so that's the only way that they can see another woman naked and get aroused in the way, that secret way that nobody else knows. And so when it's just some big, hairy, naked guy in the bed with you, if you have a desire to be with a guy, hairy, but you have a secret attraction to women, well, I'm just saying that's how, when you hear lesbian women describe it, my friends that are lesbians that have not been delivered yet, I'm speaking it over all of y'all's lives. I know y'all watch these videos, and I declare and I decree that you are going to be married to a man and not a woman in Jesus' name. Yes, I will marry you to a man. Shabba-bye. Stop asking me to marry you to a woman. It's not going to happen. You tried it. But let me go on back. I digress. So, the girls that suffer with this, they're ashamed and they're embarrassed, just like the men are ashamed and they're embarrassed, and there's no real honesty in the marriage. There's no true freedom. So you come in deceptive. And so when you come in deceptive, you need to be prepared to be deceived. Because whatsoever, the Galatians 6:7, whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. Don't condemn somebody. I just had a conversation last week. Somebody was basically jumping on me and beating me up for having a conversation with somebody about a heated situation, and they had done the exact same thing. with more than one person. And so it's crazy. You've got to be honest. You've got to keep it real and not be in denial. Don't blame him if he's blowing his whole check in the strip club. Check yourself. Find out what you can do to help intervene. Invest the $99 and get a portable pole yourself. They do lessons right over on Hillsborough for $30. I mean, get in touch with your inner stripper and make it do what it do.
Become the fantasy.
Get a hey big daddy in your spirit, because that's it's all about living that fantasy. Make him feel as if he's the man. And these women, I don't know why he's going. He's going because he's getting something there that he cannot get from you, or at least he believes he can't get from you. One of the ladies, I'm a woman of God. I'm not going to be on a pole. I said, you're going to be a woman of God praising Jesus by yourself at church on Sunday, because brother is going to gladly go get another Christian woman who is very anointed to swing on that pole. And I'm not trying to be funny. I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings. I'm keeping it real because I know my approach is a little direct, but my man is right here and he's smiling, showing me teeth, honey. You see what I mean? And so I'm trying to get you to the place, shababai, where you can do the same thing. That's not arrogance. It's confidence. It's assurance. I'm proof that what I'm telling you works. Whatever it is he needs, become that thing for as long. Now, I'm going to be really transparent with this. I had a sexual addiction when my husband and I got married. Mm-hmm. And he literally used his body as an instrument to gratify and satisfy me until I was delivered from that thing. And when I tell you we had sex 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times in the same day.
She was when I
it
say
seemed to be insatiable.
It was pretty insatiable. And I prayed to God about that thing, and I had to take responsibility. It wasn't something that I wanted to do, but to prevent her from going out and doing something sinful.
Shabba-bye.
I had to take it. I had to be the lamb that was slain.
And when I tell you he did, every time I came to him a lot, from the time he got home from work, he got very, 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 very little sleep, even in the middle of his sleep. It was great.
Wasn't healthy. It was great
for me.
It wasn't healthy.
And so, but he loved me enough, and he used to always say to me, and I'd cry afterwards because I felt like I was torturing him. And he said, no, I enjoy making love to you. And he says, I know that this spirit that is ruling in you is not going to always rule. He said, you marry me for the sex, but you're eventually going to fall in love with the man. And I did. And so now when I desire him sexually, it's because I love him and I'm in love with him. It's something totally different, as opposed to an unclean spirit that probably could have been gratified with me humping on a pole. I had so many vibrators and so much other stuff. Gosh, let's try to wrap this up.
Understanding the danger and the damage it causes. Again, you must understand that pornography, masturbation, and frequent strip clubs are just as addictive as
frequenting strip clubs.
Frequenting strip clubs are just as addictive as alcohol or drugs. It detaches you from reality. Again, it's the fantasy. Pornography sells the fantasy.
And people just, men and women, they just use it, or they just go to the strip club for the escape, to get away from the stress of the bills, or your nagging, or the kids, or sometimes they feel unsuccessful, they feel like failures, and there's such a rush and such a high, because I worked in the strip club, and I was also addicted to patronizing the strip club. And I knew those men that loved me, half of those men, were hunching each other, but it was a thrill to see them get up on me and chunk it, you know what I mean? And so I would put that money in there. And so you've got to understand there's a mental place that he goes to. And it's only going to be met with the things that are said and done in that particular environment.
Now, I want to take this time out to let you know, don't y'all freak out or worry, okay? One last danger and damage it causes, it numbs you to human touch. And all emotional sensitivity.
All emotional sensitivity.
Because after a while, what it takes to get you there is the porn. And so you really have to really, really work at being delivered from this thing. Now, the good thing is
something good.
Porn is separate from who you are. Yes, it is an addiction, right. But you are allowed to become bound so that you could testify for His glory after you have fully become delivered from this thing.
Yes, listen, there's hope.
There's hope. Now, don't y'all give up on one another. Don't give up on him. Don't give up on her. There is hope.
Real quick, before we go, we're going to do the Ask the Marriage Mechanics live. So those of you who have questions, I see some things popping up. That's where we answer those questions. So we're going to do that right after this one.
Yeah, we answer any questions
We answer
you
any
want.
questions you have. All you have to do is just inbox us or load them up on here, and we'll answer them. Here are some key things you got to do to overcome the pornography, the strip club, and the masturbation. Now, we taught this several years ago, but we've gathered this information. We did a little research, and we believe that these tips will help you. The first thing you got to do is confess that you've got an issue and become accountable to someone.
You got to remember, this is a secret sin. This is a sin of secrecy.
Right.
And that's where this thing flourishes and grows, in the secret places.
So become accountable and be real open about every time you have those temptations and those desires. The second thing is you've got to identify the triggers.
Identifying the triggers means that there are certain things that drive you to that thing. Certain things like stress, argument, certain things like a lack of sex, not having sex for an extended period of time.
Just those private moments when your wife and kids are sleeping and you creep and do it then.
Yeah.
So the number 3 is disrupt that cycle. Whatever time frame or opportunity that you normally have to do this, to watch the porn or to go to the strip club, disrupt the cycle and change your habits. Do something totally different. And whoever you plug into as far as mentorship and accountability can give you some specific suggestions based on your personality and your set of your specific needs.
Also, increase the spiritual images, words, sounds that enhances your walk with God, as you minimize the things that cater to the addiction. So, we had a friend of ours at our church, and when our church was in St. Petersburg, she